Hello BookTube, and happy Pancake Day, or Shrove Tuesday if that's what you call it. For those of you who don't celebrate Pancake Day in the world, it's the day in the UK before Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent, where we stuff ourselves silly with pancakes. Traditionally I think it was using everything up in your larder, but now we just gorge ourselves on pancakes. So me and my son have just had our pancakes. My favourite filling is jam, so I had lots of strawberry jam and I ate 4 of them. They were very nice, and it's only once a year. So yeah. What I was going to talk about today is rainy day reads. As you know, I'm from the northwest of England, and the default weather in this part of the world is rain, and it's just depending on what type of rain you get on each day, really. It's so varied that we're a bit like Eskimos. We actually have different names for the different types of rain. Say, for example, a fine rain that soaks you through is called billinge rain, because there's a hill where I live called Billinge Hill, and it's very misty and fine up there, so that's what it's named after, and so on and so forth. And you've got spitting and all those kind of things. Yesterday I seemed to be outside a lot, just at the time when it was driving horizontal rain of icy cold barbs of freezing water all day, and I seem to be outside in that a lot. Today it's kind of been sunny, 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 black downpour. So, you know, they're the kind of days where you just want to be inside, curled up under a blanket, reading a really, really good cosy read. So these are my guide, my recommendations to a good old rainy day read. The first ones I have got is Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding, and the follow-up book, Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason. These books are, as you can see, they're my ancient copies of them. They made me very, very embarrassed once when I was reading Bridget Jones's Diary. I'd actually been funded to go to a conference, and I'd been reading this book, and I snuck out of the speaking because it was really boring, and I sat outside the conference hall reading Bridget Jones's Diary, but then I just couldn't stop myself laughing, and so yeah. But you know, what would you rather do? Listening to a load of boring talk about medical things, or read Bridget Jones? So yeah, so these two books are laugh out loud funny. They'll just take you away. You can skim through them in about a day. I don't recommend the new one, the Mad About the Boy book. I hated it. The next one is a ghastly copy of Girl with a Pearl Earring with the horrible, horrible, horrible photograph of the film cover. I hate these kind of books. This is by Tracey Chavalier, but don't let the cover fool you. I really do need to get a better edition of this book. This book is absolutely brilliant. It's set in the time of Vermeer. I think it's 17th century Holland or 16th century, not sure, around that era, give or take 100 years or so. And it's all based on the famous portrait Girl with a Pearl Earring, and Tracey Chavalier has worked a story around the girl who Vermeer painted, because I don't think anybody actually knows what it is, and it's sort of like there's some sexual tension in there. It takes you back to the life of a maid within that time. It's absolutely brilliant, transports you. The film of the book is actually really, really good as well. But yeah, you will enjoy this book, and again, it's not a long read, but you will be transported in time and you will forget about the cold rain. The next book is not for the faint-hearted. This is The Book of Human Skin by Michelle Lovric. Again, this is a historical novel. This is set in 18th century Venice, and it is a very, very tense read. It's very much so. There are the people in it who are really good, and the people in it who are really bad are really bad. The protagonist is a girl who, her and her brother are quite at odds with each other, but obviously in the time that it's set, the boy has all the power. So his name is Minguilo, and he's faced with an unexpected threat to his inheritance when a newborn sister, Marcella, arrives. So he has so much jealousy for his sister, and he condemns his sister to a series of fates as a cripple, a mad woman and a nun, and he has an insatiable quest to destroy her. But then it's about her fight back and her how he's underestimated her determination to fight back, and through it all is this weird sort of fetish for collecting books that are bound in human skin, which I think was something that they did in those days. It's an absolute page turner. You are transported to, medieval Venice. You will absolutely love it. Is it medieval in them days? Maybe Renaissance, don't know. But you're not in rainy UK. The next ones are, well, I did say The Rosie Project by Graeme Simsion, but as you can see, my books are just in a mess, and it's in there somewhere, but I just can't find it. And it's another thing that I just need to do. I need to sort my shelves out one day. I will do it because I can't find anything. There's too many, well, I was going to say there's too many books, but there's never too many books. But the second book in the series is The Rosie Effect. I prefer the first one to this one, but it's equally good and it's definitely worth a read. And if there's any more in the Rosie series that come out, I will read them because they make me laugh so much. It's sort of, I'll just put these other books down. The protagonist is called Don Tillman. He's an Australian that moves to America. If you've ever seen The Big Bang Theory, he's a little bit like Sheldon Cooper, but maybe a little bit more aware of being a social animal, so he's looking for a wife, basically. That's in The Rosie Effect, and then The Rosie Project carries on from there. And it's just, he's so funny. His well-meaning, absolute control freakery just get him into all sorts of scrapes, and it's just hilarious, and you will just, forget all your blues and just enjoy. So I thoroughly recommend. Dive in. You will fall in love with Don Tillman. The next one I thought would be, now I know that you can be a hardcore poetry fan, and I do read some poetry, but I can't say that I'm the world's biggest fan of poetry. But something like these little anthologies, I've got quite a few of these, and I've got other anthologies, I think are a good introduction to poetry. And this is a BBC book called The Nation's Favourite Comic Poems. There's quite a few of these. There's The Nation's Favourite Poems, The Nation's Favourite Love Poems. But just, something to make you laugh and just dive in. And I just sort of opened it and I'll just read one of the poems that popped out to me. And it's by an anonymous author. And it's called On a Tired Housewife. Something I think all of us females out there may actually identify with. So this, I think, is what would be on her gravestone. Here lies a poor woman who was always tired. She lived in a house where help wasn't hired. Her last words on earth were, "Dear friends, I am going to where there's no cooking or washing or sewing, for everything there is exact to my wishes. For where they don't eat, there's no washing of dishes. I'll be where loud anthems will always be ringing, but having no voice, I'll be quit of the singing. Don't mourn for me now, don't mourn for me never. I'm going to do nothing forever and ever." Yeah, I can see where she's coming from. So just, dig in, have a laugh, randomly, fun. The next one is The Bees by Laline Paull, or I think that's how you say it, Laline Paull. Beautiful cover, as you can see, it's all yellow and with the little hexagons, and then there's the little bee. And that probably is a picture of Flora 717, because Flora 717 is a bee who is the protagonist in this book. And you fall in love with Flora 717. I have never been so wrapped up in an insect in all my life, and I followed her through all her adventures, and I loved her, and I was upset when she was upset, and I was happy when she was happy, and I was rooting for Flora 717 all the way through the book. So this book will take you away from your rainy day blues and put you into the mind of a bee and a beehive. And from this, I become fascinated with bees. I had to look up all about them and learn about them. And this book I have to say is a work of genius. It's sort of, you're learning the natural history at the same time as you are seeing it through the eyes of a bee as it's lived. And on the back, the 3 words that say accept, obey, serve. Thoroughly recommend it. Brilliant, brilliant book. The next one is Very British Problems. This is again another book you can read in a day. I think this came from a blog or a Twitter feed, I think it was. And it's basically diagnosing all the elements that would make you British. We are quite a strange race, but as I read it, and there is a little quiz in here that you can actually rate how British you are. I was very British. But it just says things like, there's an epidemic sweeping the nation. Symptoms include acute embarrassment at the mere notion of making a fuss. Extreme awkwardness when faced with any social greeting beyond a brisk handshake. Exactly, I quite agree. An unhealthy preoccupation with meteorology. I'm doing rainy day reads. The cover of the book has got rain on it and an umbrella. This is how I live most of my life. And I just opened it again at a random page. It's got little fun illustrations in it and things like that. And I'll just read to you what I opened at this bit. So this is If You Are British. Discovering your favourite cereal in a foreign supermarket with a slightly different name and finding it a bit too humorous. Or suspecting that by the time you're 90 you'll have convinced yourself that curly whirlies used to be the length of a small car. And yes, when I was small, curly whirlies were as tall as me, and now they're like this big. I mean, what is that? Same with Mars bars, and if anybody remembers wagon wheels, they used to be as big as your head, and now they're just the size of a little digestive. And then another one, missing your tea's optimum drinking temperature by seconds. I'm not a tea drinker, but I do get that it's a big deal in this country. And then there's another one on this page, and I think we've all been here. Spending an entire meal debating whether to tell someone they have food on their face. Yeah. So this is by Rob Temple, and it's Very British Problems, and when you read it, you can diagnose yourselves as how British you are or not. I think it comes out with whether you're British, French, Italian, or American, those kind of things. But I was British. Very British. Another one that I haven't got the book to hand, but I'm convinced it is somewhere in that lot again. I know it's in there somewhere, but I can't find it. And that is Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. Just, you know, it takes you into that romantic era, the tragic heroine of Holly Golightly, New York, glamour. Yeah. So that's another one. I actually have that on an audiobook, and that's read by Michael C. Hall, who plays Dexter, and he reads it absolutely brilliantly. It's only a quick read. I think the audiobook's only about 3 hours or so, and it's just wonderful. The next one is Watermelon by Marian Keyes. Marian Keyes is probably known as the founder of Chick Lit, but she's so much more than that. Her books have all got real sort of dark themes to them, whether it be about alcoholism or domestic violence. There is always an undercurrent, but within that she is such a humorous writer. And this was Marian Keyes' first book, and it's the first book in the Walsh sisters stories. The Walsh sisters are a family of 5 Irish Walsh girls, and they are all hilarious. And this one is about Claire, who finds herself dumped by her husband, who's left her for an older woman just after she gives birth to her first baby, and she finds herself overweight with a baby that she can't name, and she just runs back home to Dublin in Ireland, and it's just the mad adventures and funny old life of back at home at that time in your life with your crazy sisters and crazy family, and it's just a really, really good read. It will make you laugh and it will make your heart sing. And the final one is this one. Now, I'm not suggesting you read it all, but this is my edition of the complete works of Sherlock Holmes, and I recommend any Sherlock Holmes. They're all fantastic. Arthur Conan Doyle is a genius. I absolutely love all of his stories. I have read all of his work on Sherlock Holmes, and I have them all on audiobook, which again, they're read by Simon Vance from Audible, and they're absolutely brilliant. So any of these will take you away to the Victorian era of London, or if you want to go to The Hound of the Baskervilles, you can read that one. So yeah, and they are absolutely great characters, and this is a beautiful book, and it's even got some illustrations in it as well. But yeah, it's a great big book and it's beautiful. So that is my guide to rainy day reads. Obviously, as I've said, rainy day is the default setting for where I live. So if you've got any recommendations for a good rainy day read, obviously they're going to come in handy because I live in the northwest of England and that's what we do up here. Happy reading, everybody, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!